All right. Hi, friends. So good to be with you guys. So last week, Jeff spoke on hope and what hope looks like in difficulty. The week before that, Jason talked a little bit about faith. And so we're picking back up in Luke's gospel, and we'll be in Luke chapter 17. Right now, what we're going to be looking at is a healing story. And healing is an interesting part of Jesus' ministry because it seems to have happened all the time. It's like every time that we meet Jesus in the stories, he's either sharing the good news of Jesus, he's eating dinner, or he's healing someone. And it's like, man, were people just really sick back then? Like they were really struggling physically, but it seems like that's not true. Just because we are hearing those things often, it doesn't mean that they were struggling more often than we are today. Modern medicine obviously didn't exist back then. But really, I think we're really good at marginalizing and hiding our sick today. I feel like we're really good at making sure that old people are put somewhere else. We forget about the ones stuck in their home with chronic illness, that they are by themselves in those spaces. We don't make easy space for wheelchairs or walkers or white sticks for people who are blind. We forget the need until it arrives into our view oftentimes. And many times we do that. And until we get sick, or there's a pandemic, or our back goes out, or our eyesight falters, or walking tends to get harder, we just kind of forget about those things. Or I think about those that are addicted to substances, whose brains bully them through mental health, revolting against reality, tormenting them. I think of those who experience homelessness, unable to shower or feel safe in our community. Oftentimes those beloved humans, the sick, the addicted, the non-ambulatory, the mentally ill, the homeless, the elderly, they're oftentimes pushed out of familiar community and segregated in some ways to spaces that are less seen. And so we just lose track of people because we keep moving forward. And I think today's story kind of tells of that reality back then and what that means for us today. It talks about some folks that were living in the margins of life, like the in-between spaces, this borders of life. They lived in this middle space where they remained forgotten and overlooked and avoided and unseen. And the story is about some men who were experiencing leprosy. Leprosy was a horrible skin disease. It was incurable. It was known to be contagious. It was a type of disease that would settle into the parts of the person's body that doesn't get as much blood flow. So the fingers, the toes, ears, nose, lips, those are the areas that would go first. And it would attack that part of the body, and that part of the body would eventually slough off until it was completely dead and away. It was horribly painful. It was incredibly unsettling to look at for the rest of the community to see that. And because in this culture, during that time, and especially before that time, the priests were considered medically informed. I am not medically informed. If you guys have something going on, you should talk to your doctor, not me. But back then, biblical law asked the priests or demanded that the priests were the ones that would hold the people medically cared for. And so if somebody was experiencing a skin disease, and you can see this in the biblical law, they would require that person that was experiencing the skin disease, the afflicted, to go to the priests, to be extensively examined over the course of a week to determine if whatever it is that they were experiencing was a temporary skin condition or something that was more permanent. And if the disease was still there after those weeks, after that week went by, they were then commanded to leave the camp, to exist outside the camp. And if anybody came too close to them, they would have to yell out, "Unclean, unclean," to let people know to stay away. Completely isolated, outside of the regular community, having to declare their disease to all people. So that was part of the law. And so we read about this in Leviticus 13, and it should be up on the screen. If not, you can turn in your Bibles or just listen as I read it. Leviticus 13:45 and 46 says, "Anyone with such a defiling disease must wear torn clothes, let their hair be unkempt, cover the lower part of their face, and cry out, 'Unclean, unclean.' As long as they have the disease, they remain unclean. They must live alone. They must live outside the camp. So that was the law. That was what was expected. What I want you to know before we read today's passage is that this law was given to the Israelites after being rescued from slavery in Egypt, and they lived together in like really tight quarters, in tents, in camps, while wandering the wilderness for those 40 years. And that's when the law was given to them. So many historians and anthropologists really like affirm that this law wasn't upheld perfectly after people settled into villages and cities, and they had like more permanent dwelling places that were separated from each other a little bit more. So while this was the law back then, it wasn't quite held up in the same way that it was when it was first given. And we'll see that in the story that we're going to read in Luke's gospel, where instead of like each person experiencing leprosy being isolated to themselves, totally alone, we see a group of men experiencing leprosy together. And none of them yell unclean. No one's announcing their presence that way. It just says that they respectfully stood at a distance. So I just want to put that out there as well. And regardless of whether they upheld those Torah ideals, they were a people that was ostracized and overlooked and unseen. They were people that were abandoned in many ways by their community because of this painful and disturbing skin disease. So I'm going to read the passage. Notice things that might come up, any kind of curiosities you might have, or things that might make you uncomfortable, or even just thoughts that you have, and then we can talk about it, and then I'll keep going forward with what I feel like we have for today. So it's Luke 17. We'll be in verses 11 to 19. Now, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well." May the Lord add a blessing to this reading. Thanks be to God. Any curiosities or thoughts, observations? Yeah, Kathy.
Were the Samaritans in the same, would they have been going to the same priest synagogue?
I know, right?
Was he?
They would have been going different directions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I observed that as well. Because they worshipped in different mountain spaces.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that. Any other thoughts or curiosities, observations? Have you ever felt like you've been overlooked or marginalized in some way or another throughout your life? I think most of us probably felt it in high school, and then those wounds still carry forth into our lives today. But anybody experience feeling unseen or in a season of life that you felt kind of overlooked? Yeah. Anybody want to share any experiences of that? Or just hold them close to yourself. That's fine too.
You think the other 9 that went to the priest?
Yeah.
Do you think they put their faith back in the priest?
Instead of in Jesus?
Yeah, because that's where they came from.
Yeah.
And the Samaritan, that's not where he came from, was more logically inclined to seek the source of his healing.
Maybe. That's good, Tim. Yeah, like that. Like we go to what's familiar and comfortable. Or even like, in some ways that none of them have been able to go to the temple for a long time because once you're considered unclean with a skin disease, you can't actually go into worship. And so they could have been just so excited to finally experience this community that they've been missing out on, maybe. Yeah. Any other observations or thoughts?
Didn't the priest have to say that they're now
Yeah.
they're now clean? That way the community would welcome them back.
Yeah, they'd
That's
have to
why
get like
Jesus told them to go back. They were not even healed, but they were going to be healed.
right. Yeah, they'd have to get that certificate of healed, or the certificate that says that they can now be included in the community. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Emily.
I thought it was interesting that they were healed on the way.
Yes.
Right away.
Yeah.
And also that having leprosy kind of cut across those divides of like Samaritan and non-Samaritan.
Yes.
Brought them together in solidarity.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's like where it was going to go. The individual suffering that each man was experiencing, it became like a communal glue in a way that like overlooked ethnicity and religious background and theological perspective and even like long-held historical prejudices. It's like those things didn't matter as much when there was something that like they were all experiencing in common. And knowing that at least some of them were Jewish and at least one person was a Samaritan tells us a lot. The Jews and Samaritans historically hated each other. About 700 years prior to this moment, Assyria had conquered the land and had taken most of Israel into captivity, where their entire way of like subjugating the people was to like erase their identity as a people by intermarrying with them. So almost like you no longer exist as who you are because now you're part of us. And so the Samaritans were considered half-breeds, essentially, is what they were called. So they were half Israeli or Jewish and half Assyrian, and no longer included in the beloved family of God for a lot of people. They thought that. And so there was like a lot that came out. A whole new people group came out of that, where they had their own places of worship and their own temples, and they still followed the Torah in the same ways. I mean, they're siblings. They really are. But yet sometimes it's, you have a step sibling or a half sibling and you just feel like you're the better one in the family or whatever. There's a lot of rift that happens within that. So even in their many differences, though, these are like this group of Jews and at least one Samaritan, and all the ages and stages between them all, and the relationship statuses and how many of those dudes were fathers, like all sorts of differences were happening, and yet there was still this bond because of their common affliction. And it's true, like there's nothing quite as powerful as Me Too. Like to tell someone that has or is experiencing something similar to you is its own kind of healing in a way. Like it makes you feel like you're less alone. You know that you're not the only one that's going through that. And I think that's true for many of us. And I know that the phrase Me Too has been really used for sexual trauma in the most recent time. But regardless of sexual trauma, I think most of us who have experienced some sort of affliction or difficulty, if somebody has experienced a miscarriage and you meet somebody who's also miscarried, it feels like you're meeting someone who knows exactly what it's like to go through something. It's very bonding. Anybody experience this? That's like Me Too? Yeah, go ahead.
In a support group, I gave birth in 2016, and I went through an IVF, and it was IVF twins. So we all had gone through our IVF journey, and we all were blessed enough to be pregnant with multiples. And we were from all over, mostly the United States, but all different walks of life, all different faiths, but we all shared this infertility, and then the rainbow on the other side of it. So and we're still, 9 years later, we're still in the group together. We still turn to each other for parenting advice, and it's been wonderful.
I love that. Thanks, Christina. That's so good. Yeah. It's amazing how that can, for the positive parts and even the negative parts of life, those things can bring people together. What I love about this passage in the beginning is how it says that Jesus traveled along the border. Those like middle spaces, borderlands, the now and not yet type of places where oftentimes forgotten and overlooked people reside, right? And it's in those middle spaces that these men with a terrible skin disease resided that Jesus had mercy. And their cries and their shouts and their faith to ask for help invited Jesus to then see them, to notice them. And maybe, I don't know if Jesus would have passed them by if they didn't shout all the more, if they didn't say, have pity on us, we don't know. But what we do know is that Jesus saw them in their torment and in their marginalization. He saw them and acknowledged them and then asked them to go. Like what Emily was saying, like ask them to go. Like not like, I see you, let me heal you. Yeah, that looks really bad. That's terrible. Let me fix that for you. He was just like, go show yourself to the priests. And they're probably like, we already did that. We did that for a whole week, and we've been out here in this wilderness for now like years by ourselves. And you want us to go back to experience the same kind of trauma? But yet that's what they did. They decided, their faith, Jesus' faith in them allowed them to have faith to then walk towards the temple and to find healing as they went. And as they were moving, their faith transformed them to move, and as they moved along, their bodies began to heal. And I have no idea how long it took for their leprosy to start going away and for like new skin to be reformed back on their bodies. Like, I have no idea how long that was. But what I like to imagine is that with every step they took, it wasn't just this transformation of their bodies, it was also a transformation of the bitterness that they held inside of them. Like, every step was like a step of letting go of the resentment and the insecurity and the fear and the sadness and the grief. Every step that they walked towards the temple in faith, trusting that whatever this great healer had said is going to happen, I believe it just started to like wash away former regrets, abandoned by people, all these different things, that it just started to go away. And I wonder, as if their bodies healed, did their internal wounds heal as well? And they continued on. They obeyed Jesus' command to go to the priests in the temple and to show themselves, and then to receive this certificate of healing so they could return to their families and to their communities. But one of them disobeyed. Yeah, Tim.
How did these ostracized men recognize Christ?
I don't know. I'm guessing they've heard stories. This is the end of Jesus' ministry, so it's been about 3 years. So I'm guessing like they'd probably heard stories. And, you know, we have the story of the Samaritan woman, and so maybe she was the first she was the first missionary in the scriptures, and she maybe had shared about this great healer. I don't know. Yeah, Haley.
Leper community was a community, and they were all together. I'm sure that they had heard of their friends and other people who who Jesus had healed.
Right.
So when they heard he was kind of coming in their area, I just kind of visualized these 10 being like, we're going to find this person who's going to heal us, and like believing that it's going to happen. There might have been like, well, other people in the group that were like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't know if it's for me, maybe not for me, but they were like, we're going to get this. We've heard of it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole like your faith,
Yeah. And I think healings were fairly common in that time too, not just with Jesus. We hear about people being healed through different healers in Scripture as well. And so, they could have tried being healed by lots of people. And it was just, that's the thing you do. You ask to be healed by whoever it is who's going to heal. Yeah, Pearl.
I can imagine these guys missing their family.
Oh, I know. And it's like every time that Jesus healed, it was really not just this physical thing. It was to restore people back to their families and communities. It's like this isolation that happens within people, and Jesus brings everything back together again. Yeah, so I kind of wonder about this one that did disobey Jesus. Like, he didn't go to the priest even though Jesus told him to. And he walks up and he's like full of gratitude. I wonder if like something deep within him knew that Jesus was the high priest, like the greatest healer, the greatest one that would take away every illness or disease or sin or wounding or regret or bitter jealousy and restore everything back to wholeness. Like, I wonder if he knew something deeper than anyone else at that point. Maybe. I mean, it moved him so much that his response was gratitude. And gratitude is one of the most powerful postures we can have. It releases pride. It levels the playing field, like it levels the ground. It creates equality and inclusion and spaces for flourishing to happen in and around us. Like, gratitude is such an important posture that we see this guy have. And there's more that is happening in the story, and I'll get to in a little bit, but I just want to talk about how gratitude has shifted people's lives. And specifically, I want to ask Pete to come up and share about how gratitude has, it brought a whole different perspective to who he is and how he moves in this world. So, Pete, do you mind just coming up and sharing just for a few minutes? Can we get this microphone on, Paul?
Thank you. Yeah, Bethany asked me to speak about gratitude, so I couldn't really fully prepare anything, but I'd like you guys to just, I'm a visual person, so I think to start, if you guys wouldn't mind taking a couple of deep breaths, we take 1 deep breath, 2 deep breaths, and then the third one, just hold it for like 7 seconds and then release. You do that with me real quick, just to kind of like release the tension. And on this third one, we'll just hold it for a minute. I get a little anxious talking, so that helps relieve the anxiety. So I want you to just like visualize this for me for a second. Just the simplest form of a gratitude you can have. Think about what it took for you to be here in church today, sitting where you're sitting. And I don't mean like what car you drove here, or if you took a bike here, if you walked here, whatever. I mean, what got you to this point in your life? That you're sitting here today, we're all present with each other, right? Think about your great-great-great-great-grandparents and how they had to meet to make your great-great-great-great-grandparents, and so on and so forth throughout history, right? To be where you're standing, and the DNA that you have, right? The person that you are, who you've become over these years, whether you're young, old, doesn't matter, where you are right now in this moment, right? How can you not be grateful for that gift? You know, how can you not sit there and just relish in that you were given this gift of life? You're here, right? And from there, it's like, just imagine like what you can do with that gift. Like we all are here for a purpose. I don't believe there's a single human being on this planet that's lived or is living right now who didn't live with purpose. And God put that purpose on your heart. And so I'm going to share a story a couple years ago on how I really heard what Bethany calls like a whisper, right, in my ear from God, but it was really loud. It was a loud voice. So it's Thanksgiving. This is a few years ago, and at the time I think I was 44 years old. And we had Thanksgiving dinner, and I sat down at the bed in my room, and I just kind of felt like I was like reflecting on my life at this point, and I always felt like I needed to live my life. I needed to be validated. I needed somebody to validate what I was doing. I was a business owner, father. Was I doing a good job? Was I good at the business that I created that was gone now? Was I good at being a dad? Have I raised my 4 children? Have I raised my kids right? You know, and I felt like I needed somebody to validate me. And then I realized, no. The voice came on me and said, you know what? You don't. We're all validated. We're all worthy. We're all here. We don't need anyone to validate anything for us. We don't need to live our lives seeking approval, seeking what people think is right or wrong, right? Just be grateful. Just be grateful that you're here. And you get to do the things you get to do in your life. We get to live in this beautiful community, right? Surrounded by redwoods, with an ocean, with some sunshine. At least today, a little bit of wind. Beautiful weather, beautiful people, and a small church community right here, where we're all present with each other. Gratitude, right? When you have gratitude in your life, anxiety can't exist. They can't exist together. They can't coexist. When you're grateful, truly grateful, and you practice gratitude every day, anxiety melts. It goes away. And I learned that. So this story I'm going to tell you. So I was 44, Thanksgiving night, feeling sort of like my life was in the fog. Like I always felt like I needed to be validated. And I felt the presence of God. And at that point, I was working on a lot of things in my life. So the 5 F's, right? So you have, this is what I call the 5 F's. This is what my belief on being like what I call an expansive human being. And it's like your family, right? An F. Very important. How strong is your family? How strong are the bonds with your children, with your spouse, with brothers, sisters, your family? Super important. It's a work in progress every day for all of us, right? And then you have your friends. You know, all people around your church community, your friends outside of church, the people you work with, your acquaintances, all your friendships. And how do you strengthen them? Are you there for them? Do you listen to their voices? Do you listen to them when they need you? You know, strengthen the friends. Another F. Then you have finances in check and make sure you're able to survive, and you're making your car payments, your house payments, or putting food on the table. Finances are real. And so, saving money and being, financially independent one day would be a dream, right? So, working on that, another F. And then there's the fitness. Keeping your mind. That's not just physical too. That's your body. That's your mind. Like being a fit human being. It's a struggle. It's tough to do. And then it came down to faith. And when I thought about faith, I was like, I don't have a lot to say about that at this time. I don't know where to go with that. Like, what is faith? Like, I grew up Catholic, kind of walked away from the church for a while, just didn't know what it meant. But then it hit me on that Thanksgiving night that, I don't need anyone to validate anything. I just got to be grateful for what I have, where I'm at. Don't look back at your life and think you need this validation, that you need to be told that you're living a great life. You lived a great life, man. You've been doing great. Like, you've done all these things. You have this wonderful family and all these things around you, right? And all these F's that are strengths. So I just decided I need to do something to change, activate my life, to do something at this point to go the places I want to go, to make progress. And so I decided to do something completely radical in my life at that point. I had never run in my entire life. I'd never really worked out or been that physically active other than running around with toddlers and trying to keep up with them and all that. Not really. So I said, let's do something crazy. Let's wake up 5 a.m. tomorrow on Black Friday. Everyone's getting up and getting in line to go to these big stores and buy big TVs and do all this crazy stuff they do. I'm just going to go to the gym. And I went. I could barely lift any weights, barely last on the treadmill. It's tough. It was hard, and I wanted to quit right away, obviously. It's like, this is dumb. But I kept going back, and I kept going back, and I kept going back. And then it got kind of like addictive, and I was like, I kept going back, and I kept doing it, and months had gone by, and I was going, and I was thinking, I want to try this running thing. I really know I hate it. It sucks. It's not something for me, but I'm going to embrace the stuff, and I'm going to go do it. So I did. And I said, it's always been a bucket list of mine to run a marathon. And so I signed up for one, and I went up to Bend, and I ran it, and it was hard as, you know what? Hard. And my family was there to support me, and I was doing really good, and I was like 20 miles in, and then they had signs, and they were like, way to go, and I was like feeling really great, and then it all fell apart, and I almost had to walk the rest of it. And I actually almost thought about quitting at mile 23 until I saw an 80-year-old guy with a walker going, you can do it! And when I finished, I cried a lot, but I realized it washed over me that I'd worked really hard to get there. And I did it. Sorry. And it shocked me because I realized there's a lot I can do. There's a lot of things that I can do, that I can put my passion into. I started coming here, and I just started feeling the presence every day. And I run every day. I've done some ultra marathons. I've done a lot of stuff, and I'm just so grateful that it turned my whole life around.
Yeah.
And life can be hard. Life can be challenging. I think I was telling Bethany this one day. I was out running, and I was like, "Hey God, what do you got next for me?" And that's what he had next for me. So we go through challenges in life. It's not always easy, but I'm sorry to get a little emotional, but it's like, I think all those challenges and those hardships really teach us. They're very big teaching moments. And you might fail too. But there's so many lessons in failure, and you just don't quit. And you come out the other side. The other side is hope. The other side is gratitude. The other side is joy. The other side is so fulfilling and so rewarding. And I'm smiling every day, and I'm feeling great. And I feel like spreading that to everybody, spreading that message to everybody, be grateful. We're in a trying time in 2025, we all know, and I'm not going to get political about it at all, but we're all in a tough time. A lot of people are in a tough place. A lot of people are going through some really difficult times, whether it's economically or, hardships, lost loved Stephanie said it great on our podcast the other day. It's like both can exist. You know, you can have gratitude and also be going through hardships. But leaning towards gratitude, leaning towards realizing what those hardships are about. They're lessons. You know, if we lived in a perfect world where there's all sunshine and rainbows every day, you know, like what would it all be for? We're here for a purpose. We're here to move forward. We're here to shine a light, you know, in darkness. And so I just implore everybody to have gratitude as the attitude, you know, to practice it every day when you wake up and be thankful, because, I mean, I have a lot of people, at 47 years old, I have a lot of people that aren't here anymore, you know, and I'm living for them. I'm out there running every day for the people that can't run. I'm out there every day just grateful that I get to enjoy the sunshine and the fresh air and just enjoy these epic adventures. And so I just hope that for everybody else. I hope that for everybody else, that I pray for everybody going through hard times to just lean on gratitude and realize that the pathway to gratitude is grit. You know, it's determination, it's perseverance in the face of hardship. And yeah, just keep on going. That's all. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, it reminds me of James, the book of James, where he says, you know, you will face trials, and the testing of your faith produces perseverance, that God is with us and all those things. Yeah, thank you for that. How has gratitude, or even like that perspective of like, when we say gratitude, it's not just like, you know, have gratitude and have mindfulness and everything will be fine and you'll find your bliss. It's really like giving thanks to God for all of it. Like it's this rootedness in who God is, how God has made it so you could even show up today, that you could go on that run, that you could do all these things. God has created you to experience all these things. And even when Paul writes letters to the people in the different churches, he always says, I give thanks to God for you. He's not saying, I'm thankful for you. I mean, that's great. We can say I'm thankful for each other. But he's always like, I give thanks to God for you. Because you are so meaningful, because God has made you so. So what has that been like for you? How has gratitude shaped your perspective, or recognizing Christ in you in those spaces? Anybody want to share? Yeah, Haley.
Yeah, just giving thanks is the only thing that I found that ever has worked for me to get out of like these thoughts that I get stuck in, you know, like where I just kind of ruminate and get stuck in the spiral of just negativity and how bad things are and they're not going to change, kind of anxious thinking, and it's like I put the brakes on, and it starts off just kind of feeling like I'm just saying words, but then as I do it, I can feel my spirit just start rising up from that dark place of just starting giving thanks for, because if you stop and look around, there's so many things to be thankful for, and it like rises my spirit up out of that darkness, and it works every single time, and I say it out loud so I can hear it myself, and you know, so it's the only thing that's ever really worked.
Yeah, and it becomes a practice in some ways. Yeah, Lucy.
I don't really know how to segue into this, but God made our brains in such a way to where the part of your brain that feels gratefulness and thankfulness is the same part of your brain that feels nervousness or anxiety, so you physically cannot feel nervous and thankful at the same time.
Wow, that's so cool. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Wow, God's good like that. I love it. So I'm going to keep going in this passage, because I feel like there's a few more things, and if you guys need to like get up and walk around or stretch or grab coffee, you're welcome to do that anytime. You know, if you're distracted by anybody getting up and walking around, just close your eyes. You'll be fine. So it's really important when we read the story of these 10 lepers being healed and only one returned to give thanks. It's really important that we don't separate people into groups, meaning that we don't think higher of one person who came back to give thanks than the ones that did not return. And it's easy for us to elevate one and judge the other. We make assumptions about their character, about why they did or didn't do whatever it was. We do this all the time. It's part of human nature in some ways. Nadia Boltz-Weber writes, we do that. We fill in the blank all the time when it comes to other people. But I'm pretty sure that what we assume about other people says more about us than it does about them. I've actually started to wonder if, as a society, our drug of choice right now is knowing who we're better than. Yeah. It's right up there on the screen, but yes, I can say it one more time. It says, I've actually started to wonder if, as a society, our drug of choice right now is knowing who we are better than. Yeah. We interrupt, we assume, we need the last word in an argument because we want to make sure that they know that we're better than them or smarter than them. We create hierarchies all the time, like we're more loved or more valuable or smarter than somebody else. And I think this way of thinking, it actually really separates us from ourselves and from each other. It is what we call sin. That is what sin is. Sin is separation. And when we live into this sort of pattern of thinking that we're better than somebody else, which oftentimes, friends, comes from our own insecurities and our own sense of self-hatred. When we elevate ourselves, it's because we're kind of dying inside. And then we continue forth this sin way, this like separation that happens. We assume we know people's hearts. We assume we know their motivation. We pretend that we know more than they know. And when we do that, it removes us from connection because our assumptions usually place us in the right and them in the wrong. Like, I'm late to the meeting because my kid had a dirty diaper that just blew out everywhere. And that's why I was late to the meeting, right? But she was late to the meeting because she's lazy and irresponsible. Like, we make these stories up, and we don't know people's stories. Like, we don't know them. We make all these assumptions that justify our own superiority. And this is a sinful way of thinking. Sin always separates. But I believe gratitude is this great unifier. Like, it levels power structure through humility. It heals what has been separated. When we assume good intent with gratitude towards somebody, then we're all of a sudden so open to that person instead of closed off. Like, she's late to the meeting, and I'm so glad that she made it, and I bet she had a hard morning. Totally different perspective. Gratitude heals connection. Like, when that Samaritan man returned to Jesus with gratitude, Jesus healed him. But he was already healed, right? He was already healed. So what does that mean? Luke, let's look at a few pieces of the scripture because Luke uses a different word for healed each time to mean different things. And so the first one is verse 14. It says, when he saw them, he said, go show yourself to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. In my translation, it says cleansed. Some of your translations might say healed. That is katharizo, which means healed, cleansed, or cured. So that's the first word that Luke uses. The second one is verse 15. When one of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. That is the aomai. I'm just going to say it like that, which means healed and cured as well. The third one is verse 19. Then he said to him, rise and go, your faith has made you well. Sometimes says healed as well. And that means healed or whole, which is sozo. And sozo is such a deeper word for healing. It's like this sense of wholeness. Like, there's a kind of healing that happens in our life where we can walk and move and engage and be included in like regular life that can happen. Like, I've known people who have been physically healed, and it is incredible by Jesus. Hallelujah for that. But I think what Jesus did for this man was to point to a reality he may have missed otherwise. Like, physical healing is important because especially if that injury or the illness has been keeping somebody from community, physical healing can bring them back to community. That's so important. But spiritual healing is everything. To be made whole, to know that you're already whole and complete and accepted and fully, completely loved, that would go with this man into every situation that he's in, regardless of physical healing. Like, that wholeness, that sense of like, I am accepted, I'm loved by God, I'm whole and complete, would travel with him when he finds out that his wife didn't wait for him while he was in that colony by himself. That would continue forth into that sort of a space. His wholeness would sustain him when work was still hard to come by, when he had to avoid Roman soldiers patrolling the area. That wholeness, that heart of gratitude for what God had done, what God was still doing in him, would sustain him when his mom was dying of cancer. Like, all these things that are going to happen in his life, just because the leprosy is gone doesn't mean everything's easy all of a sudden, right? I think it caused him, or it could cause him, to see others who were suffering with deeper empathy, with compassion. Because of his healing, all the way through his body and his soul was healed and whole, he would be able to include people back into the community because he knows what it's like to go through those things. He could help other people see themselves the way God sees them because he understood how he was seen by God. The physical healing is a miracle. It is. But miracles fade. Like when you've experienced a healing, you might remember it, and that's awesome to point back to, but life still happens. Even though you're now like healed in some way, life is still hard. You know what doesn't fade? A person full of gratitude who knows their worth because of God's great love. Amen. Yeah. When a person like that who like knows their worth, who's just like, I am so loved. I can't even believe how loved I am. I can't even believe like how amazing God loves me. Like when that person walks into a room, instead of their insecurity coming in first, it's just this sense of like, they're just relaxed. And you feel that. You feel that presence. Everyone breathes a little easier because it's like they walked in with the presence of God in front of them and behind them and all around them, instead of anxiety and nervousness and negativity and insecurity being the first thing that they see. And I think that this man felt the presence of Jesus, or the presence of God through Jesus Christ, and was completely transformed from the inside out when he was told that he was whole. Jesus' faith in him asked him to go and step out in faith as well. That faith that he had caused him to walk, but it was his gratitude that caused his faith to become whole. So remember a couple weeks ago when Jason taught about faith. It was just right above this passage how Jesus said, like, if you have faith like a mustard seed, you can tell this mulberry plant to be uprooted and thrown into the sea. And what Jason was saying was like, the mustard seed has all it needs within it already to have its full potential be known, to become a mustard plant. It doesn't need to gain more of itself to become more of itself. It already has everything it needs. And Jesus was saying, likewise, you already have all the faith you need inside of you. God's already placed that within you. What Jeff says, eternity in your heart. You already have everything you need in God that you'll ever need. And God is just like, don't you see this truth? That you are already whole? Everything you need is already in you. Go live like that's true. There's an author named Scott McKnight, and he says, simple faith is not reducible to an inner urging, but is a settled pattern of trusting God because of who God is and what God has done in the past. Yeah. Any thoughts before I close it up? Yeah,
I sometimes struggle with gratitude because I don't know how to evoke it in myself.
yeah,
Sometimes when I sit and I'm like, okay, I'm grateful for A, I'm grateful for B, I'm grateful for C, I don't feel grateful. And maybe I even feel guilty. Like, well, if I have all these things, if I've been blessed in all these ways, then why do I still feel awful?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious, especially from people for whom gratitude has been powerful in those moments. Like, how do you internally move from point A to point B?
That's good. Perspective?
Have a perspective of knowing what you've been through in the past, like God really jumped out to me. I like to say that my faith was forged by fire. It was like a trial by fire when I was 12 years old, and it was forged because of that. And so I can go back to what has been done in the past. But when it comes to perspective, it's knowing. It does help to think about what she was saying earlier about what other people have been through, and just reaching out, because there's always something. You can always go back to gratitude. You can always go back to, well, I have this, I have that, I have food on the table. There's so much in this world that we have, that we don't think of ourselves as like blessed, but we're so blessed. We're so blessed. And it's like you just start finding it, and then it's just a tidal wave.
Yeah, so that's your experience. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Pete.
I feel like being in the present moment is so crucial because a lot of us, me included for sure, walk around a lot telling old stories. through this in the past, like what I was saying before, all the way up until the point that I really realized how gratitude was such a big shift in my life, is I was always telling a story, and that story always had so much limits and so much. I always thought doors were going to always be shut, closed, never open again. And not only that, a lot of times you're future traveling too, and you're thinking, and that creates anxiety, just worrying about the future, something that doesn't even exist yet, or may never exist. And you're just worried. So you're either caught in a pattern of telling this old story that's totally outdated and not who you are in the present moment, or your future traveling. But we hardly are ever just here now in the present moment, breathing in what's around us. And when we can really do that, and maybe it's a form of meditation or whatever, but and you can see what's around you, it's simple. It's simple to be grateful just for, fresh air, sunshine, being able to move, being able to have a family, the simple things.
Caleb, what about you?
Something that I was struck by, this happened with Stephen yesterday, was praying for me to not get used to a feeling of gratitude. In the sense of I was watching students graduate and this immense joy and feeling full was happening. And because I was remembering when I graduated how just proud I was of I didn't even think I could go to college. And I remember sitting on the bleachers and just feeling this immense joy. And I was like, Lord, never let me get used to this feeling. I want to continually feel it, and I had to invite Him to continue to invoke it in me. And it wasn't because I was grateful that I graduated, but it was just what a joy it is to watch other people experience what I've experienced.
Yeah.
And that I pray that they feel this joy forever. And I don't ever want to get used to it. I want to keep feeling it.
Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Kat.
I really love the idea that you can just always be grateful for even the bad things. Being content with your discontent is a way to be grateful as well. God's working all things for good, right? It's even if you don't feel grateful, there's some lesson in that for you. We get to be grateful for everything.
Yeah.
It's whole.
It definitely is a muscle. I think some people can hit the gym and they grow muscles real fast. It's like their body was meant for it. And other people can hit the gym every day and their muscles are just never getting any bigger, just because it's the body shape that a person is. And so we can't compare the way that we experience gratitude to somebody else's experience in the same way that we can't compare our faith with somebody else's faith. The Apostle Paul says that faith is a spiritual gift. And so some people are really strong. Their faith is just you can just feel it. And it's man, I wish I had that. But instead of being I wish I had that, we can be I am so glad that their faith is enough to sustain me when mine's not. It's a whole different perspective shift, if that makes sense. And I was thinking when Pete was talking, there's a crass saying in AA that, and I've said it here before, but if you have one foot in the past and one foot in the present, or in the future, you're pissing in the present. And sometimes, sorry, I hope you guys will just go home with that nugget of wisdom. Sometimes it's we have to be really aware of how to even pull ourselves back to the present. And Jason and I were on a walk the other day, and he's how do we get to the present? Because I'm so focused on all these what ifs that's happening in our family right now. And we were walking, and I'm okay, the psalmist says, look to the hills. What? Look to the hills. That's where your hope comes from, my help. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And literally, we just looked up at the hill, and the sun was shining on this green part of the hill that was just magnificent. And all we could focus on in that moment was the sun on the hill. Nothing else. It didn't change anything. It didn't make our lives easier or better. It didn't make the future better or anything like that. But at that moment, we were so present. And the more that we can practice those things, it's like a muscle that grows. Some people's grow better than others. Yeah.
So I totally agree that it's work.
Yeah.
There's a work aspect, and we're lazy, and we don't want to do the work. And so the assignment today is 100 things that you're grateful for. Write them down this week.
Ooh, I like that.
You'll get to about 40, and then you'll freak out, and then you got to work. And to give thanks is a practice. It's a muscle. It takes training. It's emotional maturity, it's spiritual maturity, and start with saying thank you. So thank you today specifically. We appreciate you for bringing the word, being you, and keeping us true and tracking. So appreciate you. Thank you. You're amazing. And I try to do that every day. And you can do that too. My dad said, adults are just kids that don't want to be flicked. They just want to be thanked. I appreciate it. So go around flicking this week. I want you to tell somebody, thanks, Jay, for last night. It was really fun, man. We had a good time. So keep it real and start to practice it. It ain't that hard. And people go, wow, you appreciate me? And then have the why. Because you brought the word today. Thank you.
Jay, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I think it's easy for someone like me to hear this and go, and then suddenly feel ashamed that I'm not more grateful. Like I'm not practicing enough. Like, oh man, I'm not doing, it's like another thing, like crap. And we're just all on such different, we're all such unique individuals, and so we just have to, it's just grace.
Yeah,
like
grace and community.
Grace upon grace. And, sometimes I have the strength to say thanks and to practice gratitude stronger than other times. And sometimes it's someone around me, sometimes it's something just in that moment. I mean, I think we can all practice it, and there is an element of like the muscle. I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is really hard to do, but I can sit down and I can write out 5 minutes, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
But it's not always, I don't want just who's putting it out there. That's all.
I love that. It's late, so I'm going to wrap up now. There's more that I was going to say, but maybe I'll say it at a different time. But yeah, I'm glad that you're all here. I'm glad that you heard what you needed to hear. Whatever the Holy Spirit gave you is what needs to be said. So I'm really, really grateful for that with all of you. Is Wes or Isaac? Isaac's going to lead a last song here? Awesome. Okay, cool.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, like, it was a weird moment with worship this morning. We had the 2 people. So Ray is, he's a
Cal Poly.
Too much. He's a Cal Poly employee, so he had graduation weekend. All the people who normally lead couldn't. So we had 2 friends of ours, Mike and Julie, who were going to. They called me at like 9 this morning, like, sorry, it's not going to work out. I called Wes. Wes like jets over here, drops the son off, he leads 3 songs.
Go say son.
And Isaac is like, hey, you do the 4 songs. So just, sometimes it's like, it's not all roses and rainbows.
Well, why don't you stand as you're able, and I'm going to pray over this time. Lord, thank you for the word that you gave us today. I pray that it will just like dig into our heart and our soul, and that we can just continue forth in the goodness of who you are. That you gave us the very breath in our bodies, that you gave us the ability to play guitar or to sing or to walk. I mean, all of it is such a gift, and we are so grateful. Help us not to miss a minute of it. We thank you, we praise you, in your holy name we pray. Amen.